They say there's always a before and an after. The moment your life folds itself in half like an old photograph. Sharp crease right down the middle. Before, I was Elena Brown. Painter. Mother. Wife of 32 years. Strong legs. Clear head. My own damn house. After. After came in the form of a Tuesday morning and a bleached-out hospital ceiling. 9:47 a.m. That's the time stamped in my memory. Because that's when I woke up. And everything was already gone. I remember the smell first. Antiseptic. Plastic. Bleach. Then the cold in my hands. They'd put the 4 in wrong. Then a voices. Too close. Too careful. A man and a woman. I blinked once. Light stabbed through my eyes. They moved toward me. The man was in a suit, a gray thing that didn't fit him well. He had a phone in one hand, a clipboard in the other. He didn't look at me. The woman smiled like I was a toddler coming out of a nap. "Elena," she said softly. "You're awake. That's good." I opened my mouth. My tongue was dry, thick like cotton. I tried to say water. I heard something like, "Whoa." A groan. Not even a word. "Don't push yourself," the woman said, glancing at the machines beside me. Her badge read, Sarah Brown. My daughter. Behind her stood my son, Adam. Hair graying at the temples. Phone in one hand, coffee in the other. "Mom," he said flatly. "Try to rest. You've had a minor stroke." Minor. Minor like a tap on the shoulder. Minor like losing your name and not being able to get it back. I tried to sit up. My body protested in slow, aching waves. The nurse came in young, no makeup, efficient like a blade. She adjusted my pillow, took my vitals, wrote things down without looking at me. I hated her. I didn't know her name, but I hated her. Because she acted like I wasn't there. The next few hours were a blur. Pills. Wires. Soft conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Doctors speaking to Adam and Sarah, not to me. Every time I tried to speak, the words felt far away. Like they had to swim upstream to reach my lips. That first night, I cried into a pillow while the machines clicked around me. I cried because no one had told me it would feel like this. This kind of small. This kind of erased. The next morning, I was moved to a recovery room. Same white walls. Same smell. New view, a window facing the parking lot. My body was sore, but I could move. I asked for a mirror. The nurse said, "Let's wait a few more days." That's when I knew. Something was off. Later that afternoon, a woman in a navy blazer walked in. Bright smile. Clipboard. I already hated her. "Elena, I'm from the social services team. Just here to check in." She didn't sit down. Didn't ask if I was okay. Just started talking. "We're coordinating with your family on next steps. You're going to be well looked after." My stomach dropped. "What are next steps?" I said slowly. She blinked. "You'll be transitioned to a cognitive recovery facility. It's temporary. Your children are making sure everything's in place." I looked at her. Really looked. She was 30 maybe. No wedding ring. Her nails were perfect. Her eyes blank. I forced the words out. "No." She tilted her head like I was a puppy refusing a treat. "Elena, this is the best decision. You'll be supported. There are programs, activities. I'm not leaving my house." She hesitated, then said it. "Your son has medical power of attorney. It's already in motion." That night, I dreamed I was drowning in my own hallway. My paintings floated above me, faces with no names. I screamed for Adam. He turned away. Sarah closed the door. I woke up choking. There was a time I thought my daughter and I were best friends. We used to take weekend trips together, just the two of us. Once in Asheville, she bought me a turquoise scarf I still wear when I paint. She used to say I was her home. And now, she was taking mine. By the end of the week, they stopped pretending. They told me the house was too much for me. They told me they were worried about my memory. That this isn't safe anymore. They never said love. Not once. Adam brought a lawyer. The woman sat in my room and explained everything like I was a child. "Your children will be able to manage your assets until you're well enough to reassume control." I said, "I'm not signing anything." She smiled. "You already did." A few months ago. Do you remember? And I did. A vague memory. Adam, handing me a clipboard in the kitchen after a minor surgery. It's just in case, Mom. If anything ever happens. I was tired. He made tea. He said, I'll take care of everything. And I signed. That night, the nurse told me I'd be transferred in 2 days. Private transport. Room waiting. My children had packed my things. Just essentials, she said. You'll feel better there. Trust me. But I didn't trust any of them. Not anymore. I asked for a pen. She hesitated, then gave me a pink ballpoint one. I wrote 3 words on the edge of a napkin. Still. Here. Elena. That was the first time I'd written my own name since the stroke. It came out shaky, but it was mine. The next day, Sarah came to visit. She brought flowers. Yellow tulips, my least favorite. She stood beside the bed, arms crossed. This is for the best, Mom. Her voice was tired. Or guilty. I couldn't tell anymore. I asked one question. Just one. Did you go in my studio? She blinked. What? My paintings. My sketchbooks. Did you touch them? She didn't answer. And that was my answer. When they wheeled me out the front entrance 2 days later, I watched the trees blur past the ambulance window. My hand clenched the napkin, the one with my name. And I made a promise. Not out loud, but bone deep. I would remember. Every word. Every choice. Every silence. They could take my voice for now, but they would never take my story. And I would find a way to tell it. The walls in the new room were pale yellow. They called it cheerful. I called it staged. I'd been transferred to Meadow Pines Recovery Center. A name soft enough to sound like a spa. But it was a place where people were hidden. People like me. Neatly labeled, cataloged, and placed out of sight. The room had a twin bed, a wooden chair, and a plastic orchid on the windowsill. Fake flower. Fake comfort. Fake safety. There was a schedule on the wall. Wake up at 7. Breakfast at 8. Cognitive therapy at 9:30. And so on. They even scheduled your bathroom breaks. The nurses called me Mrs. Brown in sing-song voices. But they looked through me. Every time. And it wasn't just them. The other patients. Some didn't talk. Some muttered into the air. Some looked at you with empty eyes. And I thought, is this who they think I am now? On day 3, I met Dr. Callahan. He wore a bow tie and used words like delicate transition. He spoke slowly, as if each syllable had to be spoon-fed to my brain. I'm here to support your journey, Elena, he said. You're safe now. Your children love you very much. Love. That word again. They used it like a shield. Like a disclaimer. He pulled out a folder. My file. He read from it like it was scripture. Diagnosis: vascular dementia, post-stroke onset. Moderate cognitive impairment. Recommended long-term supervision. I stared at him. I didn't blink. That's not true, I said. My voice was slow, but steady. He tilted his head like I was proving his point. Elena, denial is common. But we're here to help you adjust. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I looked him in the eye and asked, who wrote that diagnosis? He paused. Dr. Winters at Glenridge Hospital. That was the neurologist I saw once. Right after the stroke. For 12 minutes. He asked me 3 questions. Didn't test my memory. Didn't ask how I felt. And now this. That night, I stood in front of the mirror in my tiny bathroom. I looked at my reflection for a long time. My hair was limp. My skin pale. But my eyes were clear. I whispered to the mirror, this isn't real. And the woman staring back at me whispered it too. The next morning, a nurse named Elena, same name as me, helped with my meds. Young, maybe 25. Ukrainian accent. Soft eyes, fast hands. I said, can I ask you something? She smiled politely. Of course. What does my chart say? She hesitated, glanced over her shoulder, lowered her voice. It says dementia. Stage 2. Moderate risk of disorientation. Medication adjusted. What medication? I asked. The one we give you at night. Helps you rest. I felt cold. Because I'd been waking up foggy. Not just tired, dulled. And now I knew why. I stopped taking the pills. Not obviously. I tucked them under my tongue and spit them into tissue later. I flushed them after the night nurse left. 3 days later, the fog began to lift. I could read full pages again without losing focus. I could hold on to thoughts like puzzle pieces, not just fragments. And I remembered something. My lawyer friend's name. Naomi. Sharp as a knife and twice as fast. I didn't have her number, but I remembered where she worked. Downtown. 10 minutes from my old house. That memory was a gift, and I planned to use it. The next morning, I asked Nurse Elena if she could help me send a letter. I want to send a thank you card, I said sweetly. For my daughter. She hesitated, then nodded. Give it to me later. I'll drop it with the front desk. Instead, I wrote 2 letters. One to Sarah. Empty. Of decoy. And the other to Naomi's office. I used soft language. Nothing that would set off alarms. But enough. Enough to say, I'm still here. I need help. And then I waited. 3 days passed. Nothing. Then, one morning during arts and crafts, a woman walked in. Tall. Black suit. Dark red lipstick. Isa didn't miss a thing. She asked for me by name. Elena Brown. I'm her cousin. And I knew. It was Naomi. They gave us 10 minutes in the garden. A patch of grass surrounded by hedges. No real privacy. She sat next to me. Didn't touch my hand. Didn't smile. She whispered, "Are you lucid right now?" "Yes," I said. "Are you being medicated against your will?" "Yes." "Do you remember the name of the doctor who signed the diagnosis?" "Yes." She handed me a paper napkin. "Write it." I did. Hand shaking, but legible. She nodded. "I'll take it from here." The visit lasted 6 minutes. The nurse called us in early. But that was enough. Enough for hope to return. Enough to feel that maybe, just maybe, this story wasn't over yet. That night, I looked out the window at the parking lot lights. They flickered slightly in the wind. I whispered. They wrote me off, then smiled. But I'm writing back. They took away my brushes. That was the first clue they didn't see me as a person anymore. Just a risk. A liability with soft slippers and a fading signature. They said it was protocol. No sharp tools for patients with cognitive conditions. It didn't matter that I'd spent most of my life holding a brush the way some people hold prayer beads. It didn't matter that I'd built a business, raised a family, exhibited in galleries. All of that disappeared with one sentence in a folder. Moderate decline. The days at Meadow Pines were long and beige. Walls, floors, food, even the conversations. Everything smelled like overcooked carrots and antiseptic. Time passed in chunks. Group therapy. Nap time. Puzzles with missing pieces. And always, the constant hum of daytime television. But I refused to let my mind dull. I read shampoo labels for vocabulary practice. I recited poetry in the shower, the ones I used to teach my kids. I traced outlines on the bedsheets at night with my finger. Trees. Faces. Hands. Anything to keep the shapes alive. One day, while refolding my sweater drawer for the 3rd time, I found a tiny stub of pencil, tucked in the hem. Forgotten or left behind. To someone else, it was trash. To me, it was breath. I started with napkins, then paper towels, then the backs of menus from the cafeteria. I'd sit at the little table in my room, pretending to write letters. But I was drawing. Every night. Tiny sketches at first, then larger ones. My hand trembled, but the lines still came. I drew my old front porch, the tree with the chipped bird bath, the face of my husband, Harold, the way he looked at me when we danced in the kitchen. I drew my children, before they became strangers, when they still needed me to tie their shoes. One afternoon, I was sketching the outline of a garden gate when someone knocked. Ruth. My roommate. 76. Sharp as a tack, and completely uninterested in small talk. She sat on the edge of her bed and watched. Didn't speak for a full minute. Then said, "You're not gone. Not even close." I looked at her. Really looked. "Is it that obvious?" She smiled. "I've seen the real thing." Seen my sister disappear inch by inch. You? You're still fighting. I stared at the paper, the gate, the vine growing up the side. I don't feel like I'm winning. She leaned forward. Doesn't matter. You're still in the ring. From that night on, Ruth became my lookout. If a nurse came near, she'd cough twice. If someone knocked, she'd drop her water glass. It was childish. It was brilliant. It was survival. But I wanted more. Color. Paint. Depth. Not just pencil scratches in grayscale. So I asked. During art hour, I raised my hand and said I'd like to try painting again. The aide Marla gave me the look. That oh how sweet look. She handed me a box of blunt crayons and smiled. Let's start with this, okay? I wanted to snap them in half. But I nodded, smiled back, and waited. A week later, Ruth brought me a present. Wrapped in a crumpled napkin. Inside, a pocket watercolor set. Tiny, half-used pans of blue, green, ochre. And a brush, no metal, no edge. Safe, but still a brush. Where did you get this? I whispered. She winked. Lost and found box. They don't check what goes out as carefully as what comes in. That night, I painted for the first time in months. I used the inside of a cereal box. Cut flat. Smoothed out. I painted my back fence in early fall. The way the leaves clung to the posts like secrets. The sky, pale, wide, endless. I painted until my hands cramped. Until my breath slowed. Until I forgot I was in a place that had tried to rename me. It became my ritual. After lights out. After the last nurse passed. Cereal boxes, magazine covers, cardboard trays from lunch. Whatever I could find. The water I used was hidden in a mouthwash bottle. The paper towels, folded and hidden under my pillow. One afternoon, we were led into the common room. Fluorescent lighting. The smell of dry cookies. And bingo cards already on the tables. That's where I met Irene. Bright red lipstick. A cane with leopard print. Rings on every finger. Turquoise, silver, jade. She was 80 if she was a day. And she was dealing out cards like a blackjack dealer in Vegas. She looked at me once and said, "You have the look." I blinked. What look? The one that says, "I'm not supposed to be here, but I'm taking notes." I laughed. My first real laugh in months. She leaned closer. "You want to trade war stories or sit there pretending this place doesn't suck?" I sat down. And just like that, I had a new ally. I told Irene everything. The forged diagnosis. The lawyer. The art. The plan that was starting to form in sketches and whispered strategy. She didn't flinch. Just said, "We'll need backup." Over the next week, she introduced me to 2 more women. Vivian, former social worker. Tall, elegant, moved slowly, but her mind sparkled like broken glass. And Eleanor, accountant. Walked with a brace, wore thick glasses, and remembered everything. Everything. Names. Dates. Phone numbers. She had a list of staff turnover from the last 6 months. Handwritten. Color-coded. I called them my council of witches. They called me the comeback queen. We met in secret. At movie night. At gardening club. In the laundry room when no one watched. Each woman brought something. Memory. Strategy. Courage. Wine hidden in mouthwash bottles. We started planning. Not revenge. Not yet. Just clarity. Truth. Reclaiming. Vivian said, "First, you get the truth. Then you get the proof. Then you get your life back." That night, I painted something new. Not a place. Not a memory. A woman. Gray hair tied back. Wrinkles across her cheeks. A steady gaze. Brush in hand. 1 foot forward. Standing in a doorway she refused to let close. She looked strong. Real. Dangerous. She looked like me. It started with a phone call. Ordinary. Polite. Weaponized. Sarah's voice came through the receiver. Too sweet, too calm. "Hi, Mom. Just checking in. How are they treating you?" I said I was fine. Because anything else would open the door to pity. And I was done being pitted. She said they were going through some things at the house. Just organizing. Making space. Then came the sentence that made my stomach twist. "I hope that's okay." She didn't ask for permission. She was letting me know. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying her words like a song I hated but couldn't turn off. Making space. What did that mean? Were they boxing up my life? Tossing my sketches, my paints, the love letters Harold wrote me in college? What about the old wooden box I kept hidden in the hall closet? The one with the lock of hair from our baby that didn't make it past 6 days? Were they organizing that too? In the morning, I stood at the window and whispered, "My name is Elena Grace Brown." Not a diagnosis. Not a patient ID number. Not Mum, as spoken through gritted teeth. Elena Grace Brown. When Naomi arrived later that week, I told her about the call. About the feeling in my chest. That quiet suffocation. Like someone sitting on your soul with a smile. She nodded. You need eyes on the house. Someone they won't suspect. Claire. Of course. My student, my friend. The one who still called me her mentor. I scribbled her number on a paper towel. Naomi promised to reach out. And just like that, we had a weigh-in. The next day, Naomi brought me documents to review. Not legal filings, not yet. But steps. Evidence I could reclaim. Details I'd forgotten how badly I needed. Then she handed me something small. A key. To your safety deposit box, she said. Claire recovered it. Your original property deed is inside. And a few other things. I held it like a relic. I'd once taped it to the back of a painting in my studio, so the kids wouldn't lose it. I'd forgotten that. But my hands remembered. My body remembered. 3 days later, Claire came to visit. She wore her old denim jacket. Hair up. Face flushed from rushing. We met in the courtyard during mindfulness hour. No one else cared what we whispered. Everyone was too busy pretending to meditate. She showed me photos on her phone. My house. My studio. Changed. Gone were the bookshelves I built by hand. The walls had been painted gray. The big window that faced west had been covered with blackout curtains. She flipped to another photo. My easel. Gone. In its place, a treadmill. Sarah called it a wellness nook, Claire said bitterly. I felt something crack inside. Not break, not yet. But something shifted. That night, I stood in front of the mirror again. I studied my reflection. Wrinkles deeper. Eyes harder. Back straighter. My name is Elena, I whispered. Say it, I demanded. My lips moved. Elena. Not Mom. Not Mrs. Brown. Not patient. Elena. The next day, we requested a cognitive reassessment. An independent one. Naomi pulled strings. A new neurologist. Not affiliated with the facility. I was nervous. What if the stroke had taken something I hadn't noticed? What if the doctors had been right all along? But then I remembered my paintings. The detail. The color. The truth in every line. My mind wasn't slipping. It was sharpening. The neurologist arrived in jeans and a blazer. Young. Kind eyes. Asked me real questions. Listened. She gave me simple tasks. Then harder ones. Draw a clock. Spell world backward. Describe how to make tea. I passed every one. But more importantly, she saw me. You're not even close to moderate decline, she said. You had a stroke. You recovered. This diagnosis is wrong. She gave me her card. I'll write a report. Detailed. Signed. You'll have it by Monday. I wanted to hug her. Instead, I shook her hand. Firm. Grounded. Clear. Naomi smiled when I told her. One step closer, she said. Next, we prepare the injunction. I nodded. But my mind was somewhere else. Because it wasn't just about getting my rights back. It wasn't even about the house. It was about this name I carried. Elena. Not the one they tried to bury under forms and files and best intentions. The one I'd spent a lifetime building. Brushstroke by brushstroke. Loss by loss. Joy by joy. And I would not let it be rewritten. The next time Sarah called, I answered. My voice was calm. Level. Hi, Mom, she said. How are you feeling today? I paused. Then said, Elena. That's my name. I'd like you to use it. She laughed. Awkward thin. Okay. Elena. Are you okay? No. But I will be. Silence. She didn't know what to do with that. I didn't give her time to figure it out. I ended the call. That night, I painted something new. A name. Elena. In bold colors. Wrapped in vines and light. And underneath it, in tiny script. They forgot who I was. But I never did. They forgot who I was. Not all at once. It was a slow erosion. One sentence here. One assumption there. Until one day, I became someone they spoke about in past tense. While I was still breathing. When you're young, you believe that your family sees you. Not just looks at you sees. The girl with big ideas and dirty hands. The woman who stayed up all night finishing her master's degree with a baby in one arm and a brush in the other. You think they remember the years you patched holes in their jeans while applying for grants at 2 a.m. You think they remember the sound of your laugh, not just your medication list. But they don't. Not always. Sometimes. They trade your story in for a more convenient version. That morning, I received Naomi's printed report. It was official. On letterhead. Signed by the new neurologist. 3 pages stating, in very clear language, Elena Brown is of sound mind and capable of making her own decisions. I read it 3 times. Not because I didn't believe it, but because part of me still needed the validation. Even after everything. I stared at my name on that paper. Typed. Sendered. Intact. And I whispered, "They're not taking me." The next step was confrontation. Not with words. With action. Naomi and Claire filed the first injunction. We moved to freeze all transactions tied to my estate, bank, mortgage, utilities. We requested the court invalidate the power of attorney. We prepared for a fight. And still, I hesitated. One night, I sat outside in the courtyard with Ruth and Irene. We passed a flask between us. Technically, mouthwash. The sky above us was deep navy. The kind that makes you think God pressed a thumb into it. "I don't know if I can do this," I whispered. "I'm tired. And they're still my children." Ruth didn't look away. She said, "They stopped being your children when they started managing your life instead of loving it." Irene just muttered, "My son tried to put me in a storage unit with throw pillows. Don't talk to me about guilt." And we laughed. Tired, bitter, beautiful laughter. The kind that keeps you sane. The court hearing was scheduled 2 weeks out. Until then, we needed proof. Photos. Statements. Dates. Claire visited my old neighbors. Mr. Davis, the widower next door, signed a letter stating he saw Sarah removing boxes. Said she told him I was no longer able to live independently. He was confused. He said, "She looked so proud of herself." I remembered the way Sarah used to be. Sensitive. Gentle. Always drawing animals and asking impossible questions. She once cried for an hour because a butterfly died on the porch. What happened to her? What hardened her into someone who could pack my life away like last season's clothes? Was it divorce? Was it ambition? Was it me? Had I been so focused on raising strong children that I forgot to raise kind ones? Adam was worse. Cold. Calculated. Corporate. He'd always been pragmatic. I admired that once. But somewhere along the way, he stopped seeing people and started seeing numbers. I was no longer mom. I was an asset. A risk. A line item. Naomi found the emails. Drafts he sent to a real estate agent. Attached spreadsheets labeled expected net value post-sale. In the description, property assumed to be vacated. Title clean. Vacated. Like I'd never lived. Like I'd never loved. Claire printed the emails. We added them to the file. The folder was getting thick. Each sheet was a testimony. Each paper said, "This woman matters." Then, out of nowhere, Michael, my youngest, the quiet one, he called me. "Mom," he said, "I don't know what's going on, but I feel like I missed something important." I didn't speak. I let the silence do the talking. He continued. "They told me it was necessary. That you were slipping. But you don't sound like someone who's slipping." I said, "I was slipping, but not into dementia. Into disappearance." He said, "I'm sorry." And for the first time in months, I believed one of them. But I also knew that sorry doesn't rebuild your life. You do. with shaky hands and tight throats, and the rage of someone who refuses to be erased. A week before the hearing, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to reverse what they did. I was going to take back the narrative. I painted again. A new series. Not landscapes. Not portraits. Declarations. Canvas after canvas. One word on each. In thick, messy strokes. Woman. Mother. Artist. Alive. Enough. The staff started whispering about me. Some were curious. Some were afraid. One nurse said, "She's not like the others." And I smiled. Because I never was. The night before the hearing, I sat with Naomi in the facility's tiny library. Fluorescent lights. Old smell. Outdated encyclopedias. She placed her hand over mine. "Tomorrow you look them in the eye. Not with anger. With certainty. Because that's what they stole, your certainty." I nodded. Then said, "I want to write something. For the court." That night, I wrote my own statement. 4 pages. Handwritten. Not for sympathy. For truth. I began. My name is Elena Grace Brown. I raised 2 children. I buried a husband. I built a life full of color. And then one day, that life was rewritten, without my permission. I didn't cry while I wrote it. I was too clear for tears. The next morning, I dressed in the clothes Naomi brought from my old house. A navy blouse. Brown slacks. A scarf, the one Sarah gave me in Asheville. I looked in the mirror. Not beautiful, but unmistakably me. I whispered my name one last time, and walked out the door. I didn't sleep the night before. Not because I was scared, but because everything inside me was on fire. For years I had a voice. A quiet one. A gentle one. The kind of voice that kept a family going. That smoothed over pain. That said I'm fine when no one else was. And then they decided it was easier if I didn't speak at all. But today, I was going to speak. And everyone was going to hear me. We arrived at the courthouse at 7:52 a.m. The hearing was scheduled for 9. But I wanted to be early. I wanted to sit in the room. Feel the floor under my feet. Find my breath. Naomi walked beside me confident, carrying her case like a sword. Claire was on my other side, steady, warm. Like a railing after a long climb. But I didn't need to lean on anyone. Not anymore. The hallway smelled like paper, coffee, and nervous hope. We sat on the hard wooden bench outside courtroom 4B. I sat upright. Hands folded. Back straight. I wanted to be the first thing they saw when they walked in. Not a ghost. Not a memory. Of a woman. Adam came first. Still polished. Still distant. That same funeral suit. He looked at me like I was an old neighbor he'd forgotten the name of. A flicker of recognition, and then nothing. Sarah followed. Heels clicking like threats. Wine-colored coat. Eyes locked on the courtroom door, not me. Then came Michael. No suit. No briefcase. Just a navy sweater and a look that said, "I don't know where I belong." He didn't sit with them. But he didn't sit with us either. The judge was a woman. Silver hair. Back like a ruler. Eyes that looked straight through excuses. I liked her immediately. Naomi opened the case. Calm. Clear. Every word delivered like a brushstroke. Precise. She laid out everything. The false medical diagnosis. The abusive power of attorney. The attempt to sell my home. The restricted access to funds. She placed the neurologist's updated report on the judge's desk. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. Truth doesn't need to shout. Then came Adam, with his carefully prepared statement. We were concerned. We feared for her safety. She seemed different. She left the stove on. She wandered outside in a robe. We were just trying to protect her. Naomi stood. "Mr. Brown, are you a medical professional?" "No," he answered. "Did you consult more than one physician before acting?" He hesitated. "No." She nodded. "Thank you," and sat back down. Sarah spoke next. Same tone. Same polished worry. We didn't know what else to do. She wasn't herself. She needed help. Naomi asked just one question. "Why didn't you ask her what she wanted?" Silence. That silence said more than all their words combined. Then, It was my turn. The judge asked, "Mrs. Brown, would you like to make a statement?" I stood, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a sheet of paper. I read every word. My name is Elena Grace Brown. I'm an artist, a widow, a mother. I raised 3 children. I built a life from dust and paint and faith. And then one day, I woke up in a hospital. They said I had dementia. They said I was confused. They moved me out of my home. They packed my things. They made decisions without me. But I was never gone. I was right there, screaming, silently. And today I'm here to say this. I remember everything. I see everything. I am not confused. I am not invisible. And I will not be erased. The courtroom was silent. Naomi didn't smile. She didn't have to. She knew. And so did the judge. The ruling came an hour later. Power of attorney revoked. All bank and legal access returned to me. Any attempt to sell or alter the house, blocked. All activity on my estate, frozen until further notice. It was over. On paper. But in me, it had only just begun. Michael approached me outside, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mom, I'm sorry." I looked him in the eyes. "You knew," I said. He shook his head. "I didn't know how far they'd go." "I did," I said, and walked past him. In the car, Naomi asked, "How do you feel?" I said, "Like I just walked out of a grave they tried to bury me in." That night, I didn't go home. Not yet. Claire opened her art studio. She lit candles, put on music I loved, handed me a brush, and I painted. Not flowers, not faces. I painted a woman standing in a doorway, shadow behind her, light in her eyes. She wasn't young. She wasn't soft. She wasn't waiting. She was ready. Sometimes, a new life doesn't start with a bang. It begins in silence. When you close a door behind you and realize no one else has the right to enter, unless you say so. I moved. Far away. Santa Fe. The house was small, built from sun and adobe. No one cared if the garden was wild. The air smelled like sage and heat. The mornings belonged to the sky, and for the first time in years, I belonged to myself. For the first few weeks, I slept with the window open. I needed to hear the world. Birds, wind, the distant sound of traffic. But mostly, I needed the silence. The kind that doesn't ask anything from you. The kind that simply lets you be. I didn't pick up the phone. Adam called, always logical, always rehearsed. Sarah didn't call at all. Michael tried. I let them all go to voicemail. I wasn't ready, and I wasn't obligated to be. Every morning I painted. Not to prove anything. Not to reclaim anything. Just to breathe. I painted women with wild hair and broken spines. Eyes that had seen too much. Hands that remembered work. And with each brush stroke, I saw her. The woman I had buried to make space for everyone else. She was back. And she wasn't going anywhere. Claire asked if I wanted to do a gallery show. I said no. Then, I said yes. The space was small, sunlit. The paintings were raw. People came. They stood in front of the canvases in silence. Some cried. Some smiled. One woman hugged me and whispered, "You painted my mother." And I understood. It wasn't just about me anymore. Then came the foundation. Still here. For women over 60. For those who had been silenced. Dismissed. Pushed aside. We hosted workshops. Legal consultations. Support circles. Quiet evenings where no one had to explain why they were angry. At the launch event, I stood in front of 60 women. All different. All powerful. I said, they tried to wrap us in labels. Old. Forgetful. Inconvenient. But they forgot. We are still here. And we are not done. One day in early spring, I received a letter. Handwritten. From Michael. "Mom, you probably don't want to hear from me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know. Now I understand what it means. To be unheard. And it hurts. You didn't just save yourself. You lit a path for others. And I am proud to be your son. I didn't write back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because I no longer act from guilt. Only from clarity. Sarah never called. But one day, a package arrived. Inside, my mother's pearl necklace. And a note. These are yours. I'm sorry I took them. I hung the necklace near my mirror. To remember. Not to wear. Not yet. I saw Adam once. In a bookstore. We locked eyes. He walked over. You look full, he said. I replied. Because no one is crossing me out anymore. He nodded. And walked away. 2 years passed. The foundation grew. We helped over 500 women. One day a stranger came up to me. I wanted to disappear, she said. But then I heard your story. Now I exist again. That's why I speak. That's why I paint. That's why I sit in silence and listen. Not for revenge. Not even for justice. For presence. For restoration. For the woman I used to be. And the women who are still trying to remember their names. One evening, I sat in my garden. The sky was burning gold. A glass of wine in my hand. Bare feet on the dirt. And I thought, if the woman who lay in that hospital bed, confused, drugged, afraid, could see me now, she'd smile. Because I didn't just survive. I bloomed. Again. They thought they were writing my ending. But all they did was give me the first line of my real story.